It starts with a call at 2:13 a.m., no name, no caller ID, just a voice that says, "Be at the East Gate in 20 minutes," and hangs up before you can ask why. You go anyway. You always go anyway. That's the whole reason you're useful. Level 1, the runner. The gate is unmarked. No sign, no cameras you can see, just a keypad and a man in a black windbreaker who checks your name off a list without looking at your face. You're handed a duffel bag, zipped shut, heavier than it looks. Warehouse on 9th. Ask for Dario. Don't open it. You don't open it. That's the first rule you learn, though nobody says it out loud. Curiosity costs more than obedience. You make $400 for the drive. Cash, folded twice, handed to you like it's nothing. To you, it's rent. The empire doesn't explain itself to people like you. You're not trusted with context, only with tasks. You carry things. You wait in cars. You stand outside doors and don't ask what's happening behind them. At night, you count the money and tell yourself it's temporary, a bridge, a means to something else. You don't know yet that the bridge is the whole system, and it only goes one direction. Level 2, proving usefulness. 6 weeks in, Dario starts using your name. That's the promotion, not a title, just recognition. He gives you a second job, collections. A restaurant owner 3 streets over is 4 weeks behind on a protection contribution. $2,200 he owes the holding company that quietly owns his lease. You knock on his door at close. You say the number. You watch his hands shake as he counts it out. You don't threaten him. You don't have to. The threat already lives in the building's ownership structure, in the fact that his lease renews every 90 days, in the fact that everyone in the neighborhood already knows what happens if you don't pay. You're not the danger. You're the reminder of it. That distinction lets you sleep. You start noticing the shape of things. How the empire isn't one business but 40, stacked on top of each other. Real estate holding companies, a private security firm, a consulting office downtown with no clients you've ever seen walk in. Money moves between them like blood between organs, and nobody upstairs ever touches cash directly. You get a raise, $1,800 a week, off the books. You buy a better car, you tell your family you're in logistics. It's not entirely a lie. Level 3, trusted participant. You get invited to a meeting for the first time. Not the main room, a side office, a folding table, 5 men who all know each other's real names. You're introduced by your first name only. That's how you know you're still below the line, but close to it. They're discussing a shipment delay. Not drugs, not yet. That's a level you haven't reached. This is equipment. Electronics routed through a freight company the empire owns 40% of, quietly, through 3 holding layers. You're asked your opinion. For the first time, someone wants to know what you think. You say something useful. You don't remember what, exactly, but you remember the silence after it. The kind of silence that means you passed a test you didn't know you were taking. Dario claps you on the shoulder afterward. You're not just a driver anymore. You feel something you shouldn't feel proud of. You feel it anyway. This is where the internal code starts to reveal itself. Loyalty outranks competence. Silence outranks loyalty. And the man who never asks unnecessary questions rises faster than the man who's simply good at his job. You stop asking questions. Level 4, the skilled operator. Now you have a specialty. Yours is people. Reading them, managing them, knowing which employees at the empire's shell businesses can be trusted with which secrets. You run 3 consulting offices personally. You hire, you fire. You decide who gets a second chance and who gets removed from payroll entirely, sometimes meaning termination, sometimes meaning something else. And you've learned not to ask which one Dario means when he says handle it. You move $60,000 in cash through 3 shell accounts before lunch, structuring deposits under $9,999 to stay beneath federal reporting thresholds. It's mechanical to you now, a skill like any other. You have a driver of your own runner, a 22-year-old named Theo who reminds you of yourself 2 years ago, and you feel nothing when you send him into a warehouse with a duffel bag and tell him not to open it. That's the moment you understand the system isn't a ladder. It's a machine that reproduces itself, and you're now one of its parts. You meet the man 3 levels above you for the first time. Marchetti, regional director, someone who reports directly to the empire's inner circle. He tells you, almost gently, everyone up here has done something they can't undo. That's what makes them safe to work with. You go home and don't tell your family what that meant. Level 5, the respected insider. You're in the room now, the real one. Glass walls, private floor, a view of the city that costs more per square foot than most people's houses. You oversee 4 regional operations. Your title on paper is Vice President of Business Development for a holding company that has never developed anything. Your real job is contingency, making sure that when something goes wrong 3 levels down, it never touches the levels above you. A federal audit flags one of the shell companies. You have 11 hours to restructure $2.3 million across new entities before the filing deadline. You do it without sleeping. You do it without panic. Panic is for people who still think they can be caught. You've learned the real currency here isn't money. Money is just the fuel. The currency is information. Who knows what? Who owes what? Who can be trusted to forget what they saw? You start collecting your own information. Quietly, insurance. You don't call it that. You call it being thorough. Your marriage ends this year. Not dramatically, just a slow recognition on both sides that you've become a person who can't explain most of his life to the person he's supposed to share it with. You don't fight it. You let it happen the way you let everything happen now. Efficiently, without unnecessary emotion. Level 6. Authority. You have 40 people beneath you now, spread across cities, most of whom have never met you and never will. You give orders through 2 intermediaries, so your name never appears in a text, a call log, an email. You've learned the architecture of deniability. How the empire insulates its center by building layers of people willing to take the fall so someone else never has to. You are, for the first time, one of the insulators. A situation happens in the Cincinnati operation. A mid-level manager skims $80,000 over 8 months, thinking the layers protect him too. You don't call the police. You don't need to. You make one call to Marchetti, and by the end of the week, the manager is gone from every system that ever recorded his existence. No violence you witness. No violence you ask about. Just absence. You tell yourself the empire is simply enforcing consequences that any business would enforce. You've gotten good at telling yourself things. You're invited to the annual gathering, a private estate 2 hours outside the city, 40 of the empire's most senior people, and at the head of the table for the first time you see him, the man whose name is on nothing and owns everything. He doesn't speak to you directly. He doesn't need to. His attention is the currency now, and even a glance in your direction is worth more than the $340,000 you'll clear this year. You drive home in silence. You realize you can't remember the last time you spoke to someone without calculating what it would cost you. Level 7. The Power Broker. You stop executing tasks entirely. Your job now is architecture. Designing the systems other people will one day be trapped inside, the way you once were. You sit in on decisions that reshape entire markets. A logistics company the empire quietly controls undercuts a regional competitor into bankruptcy over 18 months, and you're one of 6 people who approved the strategy. 400 people lose their jobs. You read the number in a report. You don't feel it the way you would have 5 years ago. You've built your own network inside the empire's network. Loyalists who report to you before they report upward. Information you keep that even Marchetti doesn't know you have. This is how it's done at this level. Everyone protects themselves from everyone, even while pledging loyalty to the same name. You understand now that the empire has no ceiling of trust, only overlapping circles of leverage, each one watching the other, each one prepared to survive the other's collapse. You are rich in a way that no longer feels real. $4.7 million moved through structures you designed yourself, feeding a life you barely have time to live. You get a phone call from your daughter. She wants to know why you missed her graduation. You don't have a good answer. You have 11 better excuses and none of them are true, and she can hear that in your voice. You hang up and go back to work because that's the one relationship in your life that still makes sense to you. Level 8. The Architect. There is no ceremony for this level. No meeting, no announcement. One day Marchetti simply stops being your superior, and you understand, without being told, that you now answer to no one but the man at the center. And even he, you suspect, answers to something you'll never see. You have a floor of the building that isn't on any directory, 3 assistants who don't know each other's names, a car that arrives without you calling it, because your schedule has been fully absorbed into a system that anticipates you before you act. You are, by any outside measure, untouchable. Federal investigators have opened and quietly closed 4 inquiries into entities you control, each one dissolving before it reaches your name. You are insulated by 11 layers of structure between you and any single visible crime. And you are utterly alone. You eat dinner most nights in a room built for 12. You keep a phone that only 4 people have the number to, and none of them call unless something is wrong. You've traded every unstructured relationship in your life for leverage, and leverage, it turns out, doesn't keep you company. Sometimes late, you think about the duffel bag, the one you never opened. You wonder if there was ever a version of that night where you'd asked what was inside and walked away instead of driving it to the warehouse. You don't let yourself finish the thought. Power was never freedom. You understand that now, fully, the way you understand nothing else. Power was the slow trade of your freedom for other people's fear. A fair exchange, by the only math the Empire ever taught you. You are the architecture now. The Empire doesn't need your ambition anymore. It only needs your permanence, the appearance that someone, somewhere, is always in control. You've become the thing the new recruits are told to fear and to trust in the same breath. Somewhere across the city, a black windbreaker checks a name off a list at an unmarked gate. A young man is handed a duffel bag, zipped shut, heavier than it looks. Warehouse on 9th. Ask for Dario. Don't open it. He doesn't open it. He thinks this is temporary. A bridge. A means to something else. He doesn't know the bridge is the whole system. You do. The system continues.